Tensions in the Middle East reach a boiling point, and a dire warning has been issued from the very top.
Make no mistake, what's unfolding isn't just a flare-up. It's a potential tipping point with global consequences, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
Congress gets explosive FBI intel accusing China of faking U.S. driver's licenses to rig the 2020 election through mail-in ballots.
These revelations might represent the most audacious case of foreign interference in U.S. election history, and they don't involve Russia at all.
And some MAGA faithful are hitting the panic button in this time of uncertainty. Our social media expert will lay out why the fair-weather Trump supporters might want to just sit this one out.
Let's not forget that Trump almost died from an assassination attempt on stage. Never black pill and never go full panicking, Jill.
Blaze News The Mandate starts right now. Good evening, Patriots. There's a lot to get to. I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
You know, there's never a slow news day in 2025. It doesn't exist.
No, and let's go ahead and get right into it because Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been sounding the alarm that Iran is on the brink of completing a nuclear weapon. And yesterday, President Trump reiterated the same message. So is the world on the edge of a historic breakdown?
You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
Earlier today, President Trump announced that America has total control of the skies over Iran, as he declared that the war ends only with the unconditional surrender of the Islamic regime. So here with more, please welcome Senior Fellow and Director for the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East and the co-host of Israel Update, Michael Duran. So Michael, thanks so much for joining us because there's obviously a ton going on right now. But I think it's interesting because you wrote an essay back in April that was called The King's Foil. And it broke down all of the divisions that are going on in the administration in regards to all the foreign conflicts. So that's why I want to start with you. So let's go ahead and start there with laying out the internal struggle of all the foreign things that are going on right now in the Trump administration itself.
So, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's an exciting moment. I think we're about to take down the Iranian nuclear program. That's very exciting to me. That essay looked at the tension in the Trump administration between the restrainers, those who believe that we should distance ourselves from Israel and cut a deal with Iran, and the more traditional foreign policy types. Like, let's say, Marco Rubio, or as I presented it, Donald Trump himself. It looked at the calls by the restrainers for efforts to put pressure on Israel and move the American foreign policy, in their view, to the priority, which is East Asia, and pretty much leave the Middle East behind. I thought that was unrealistic. I thought the president wasn't there. And I asked the question, why has he surrounded himself with these people? Because they are in prominent positions in the Defense Department, in the White House, and in the State Department, when they don't actually reflect his worldview. And I think the answer is, he doesn't trust the traditional foreign policy elite. It's the traditional foreign policy elite, or elements of it, stabbed him in the back in the first term. He wants to have people that are loyal to him. And so he's moved to these restrainers. But as we're seeing, they don't actually share his beliefs. And that's where I think all the tension is coming now, say, between the president and Tucker Carlson, who is the most prominent media mouthpiece of the restrainers.
So it's interesting, you know, Michael, I have friends on both sides of this coin. And what's interesting to me is it does seem like a time in which America is rethinking its foreign policy framework throughout the world. And in part, that's just because things change, but in part it's because of this interesting mix of people within the administration itself. Where do you think those camps are now? And is there sort of unity, in the Venn diagram, a Kamala Harris Venn diagram here with a sweet spot as it stands right now?
Well, I think the president has given them clear guidance. One of the things that they did is they turned the whole Iran policy and Israel policy into an ideology. I'm talking about the restrainers, into an ideology, and they claimed it was the essence of MAGA. And they also made it a real sort of test case. You see things that are coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene today. Basically, Donald Trump is by moving to a more aggressive policy against Iran, he has somehow betrayed the cause. I think that, frankly, I think it's a little silly. I trust Donald Trump. I trust his instincts on this. He's shown throughout that he preferred to come to an agreement with Iran, and he showed throughout that he is not eager to put American men and women in harm's way. He's campaigned on that. I have no reason to believe that he suddenly changed his mind on any of this.
So we look at this situation, and there are so many different factions that we could go into. But one of the interesting parts is, right, it's not only the divided administration parts, but also his base right now. We're seeing this play out online as we've been talking about it. It's very complicated. So what do you think that Donald Trump, if you were advising him, how would you advise him to move forward with this to make sure that he tries to coalesce as many people and as many parts of these groups as possible?
I think my reading of the American people is that they don't like Iran, they like Israel, and they don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. The president keeps saying over and over again, it's very simple. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. I think that the very online opposition to him on that position is probably out of sync. I'm willing to guess, I haven't seen any polling. It's probably out of sync with the vast majority of Trump voters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you are right. I've seen some data that would suggest you're right in terms of like sort of general attitudes, certainly towards Iran, and if you ask if they should have nuclear weapons. Nonetheless, the fork on the road here is, I think, the attention between non-interventionism. We don't want boots on the ground anywhere, and regular people, even in that coalition who are MAGA, who are worried about being entangled in yet another violent conflict in the Middle East. Well, at the same time, I don't know anyone, or I certainly don't trust anyone, who would support keeping the regime in place that the world has had to deal with, these religious lunatics for decades now. So what is the best way to navigate that moving forward? Because I think that's what makes most reasonable people nervous.
I think that, yes, I agree. I think it's pretty easy to navigate. All the president has to say is there will be no American boots on the ground, and our policy is not regime change. We want an Iran that does not have a nuclear weapons program or a program to deliver nuclear weapons with its ballistic missile program. So if it gets rid of its ballistic missile program, it gets rid of its nuclear program, that's enough.
So what if they don't? I mean, what if he says, we need a surrender, right, of basically the religious regime? What are the chances do you think, of other elements within Iran now being able to take advantage of this opportunity?
Well, I see no evidence that they're doing that. They may, and we've seen uprisings before or protests before in Iran. But I don't think American policy should focus on that outcome. Mm-hmm. The president called for unconditional surrender, but I took him to be in those words. I took him to be saying, accept the terms that I offered you. Mm-hmm. No nuclear weapon. That's and accept it publicly and commit to it, and commit to a path to seeing so that you can guarantee to the world that you don't actually have this program. That's what I think unconditional surrender means. But we'll wait and see, because the president has been incredibly consistent on this point forever. So I don't see why. I don't see him changing it at all. The one issue where he might be making a change is that the Israelis cannot destroy the Fordo facility. This is the underground facility deep under a mountain near Qom. They can't destroy it with their own fighter jets. Only an American, if we're going to do it from the air, or if it is going to be done from the air, only an American B-2 bomber with the massive ordnance penetrator can destroy Fordo. So that's the one area where the president might actually commit American forces, but that's not boots on the ground. That would be a couple of sorties and a couple of bombs.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I want to look at this now outside of the Trump administration, because what we're seeing here right now is an almost, it's been taking a long time to get here for the Iranian people to make sure that they have the ability to rise up. Now it seems to be one of the times that they could actually go through and have their own change within the country. This seems to be like it's setting up pretty well for that. So what would it take for all of the young people to actually go through and overthrow this government that has been so repressive for them for so long?
I don't know. I don't know that they're in a position to do that. There are no organized opposition groups, armed opposition groups on the ground that are capable of operating outside of some very small areas. So there are 5 major ethnic minorities in Iran, and they're all along the borders of the country. So you have a lot of violence in the Baluchistan among the Baluch, but they don't have allies among the other ethnic groups, and certainly not among the Persians. So there are areas where there's violent action against the regime, but I don't see any potential organization that could coordinate between those different elements. And I don't know that the United States wants to get in the business of that, because we already seen with the regime change in Iraq that this can go once a regime is gone. Other countries are going to intervene. You could have all kinds of spillover effects that will produce results that'll be catastrophic for the people of the region and a big headache for the United States. So I'm with those people who are urging restraint. We're going to weaken the regime by taking away from it these weapons. That'll offer an opportunity for people on the ground if they're able to take it. But I personally don't see any opposition group on the ground that is ready to do that.
Yeah, the track record, our track record of interfering internally is pretty clear over the last few decades. And I think most Americans are sick of that. Let's talk about the potential, though, for escalation or this, drawing in other powers. I mean, one of the arguments that people will make is, well, we shouldn't even help with the plane. We shouldn't help them really at all in any direct with any direct military intervention, even if that's only in the skies, because it will somehow further entangle us in something that will bring in outside powers. What do you make of that?
I don't know what outside powers they're talking about. There's no outside power that is ready, that is poised to strike. I mean, what we're witnessing right now is nothing less than amazing. The Israelis control the skies over Tehran. If I said to you on October 8th, when Israel was reeling from the attack from Hamas, that within 2 years they were going to decapitate Hamas, decimate Hezbollah, the Assad regime would be gone, and Israel would be ruling the skies over Iran, you would have told me I was crazy. So, clearly the Israelis have a highway from Israel to Iran. Nothing gets in their way. I don't see any, Russia is so weakened by the Ukraine war. China is in no position to intervene directly. So I don't see the potential for any kind of catastrophic event that's going to draw the United States into a prolonged war. We are already entangled with Iran. We've been entangled with Iran for a very long time. Iran has killed thousands of Americans. It tried to assassinate President Trump. We are responsible for the security of our allies in the Persian Gulf. And Iran having a nuclear weapon, as the president says, is completely unacceptable for the United States. Forget about Israel. It's unacceptable for the United States.
Michael Duran, that is a great point. Just remembering where we were back on October 7th. Thanks so much for laying that out for us.
My pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, it'll be Chris Bedford, the FBI, China, and 2020 election interference right after this. Guess what just landed on Capitol Hill? The FBI dropped a bombshell briefing to Congress alleging that China tried to rig the 2020 election with fake driver's licenses and fraudulent mail-in ballots. And this is election sabotage with a twist. Here with more is our politics editor, Chris Bedford. So, Chris, if this is all true, then what does this say about the U.S. election security that nearly 20,000 fake licenses were intercepted, and who's actually being protected by this secret that we only now learn about this in 2025?
Yeah, that's the big question, especially the latter one, which is who's being protected? Who made the call to stop this investigation when it seemed like there were valid concerns, where the investigation was starting to turn up legitimate problems, that this was actually a source of the Chinese government, that this was actually designed to benefit President Joe Biden, then Vice President Joe Biden, in his election. 20,000 in one shipment is enough to have changed the vote in Arizona. It's enough to have changed the vote in Georgia. Arizona was 10,500 or so. Georgia was 11,600 or so. And there are other states like Wisconsin, where it was about 20,000, a little bit north of that, that actually made the difference. Now, if President Donald Trump had won any one of those states, or even any two of those states, it wouldn't have made a difference. If he'd won all three of them, then there would have been 269 to 269 electoral votes. It would have come down to the U.S. Senate. It would have been a whole other bag of worms, a whole other bunch of shenanigans. But these are just the boxes that were intercepted, and these were intercepted at the same time the FBI director, Christopher Wray, was coming to Capitol Hill and saying there was no evidence of foreign meddling in this election. Well, it turns out not only did they have the election, the Customs and Border Patrol had seized, have the evidence, but the Customs and Border Patrol had seized evidence of it. And if that's what they seized, then what did they miss? Well, the ketamine that they seized, which they're actively looking for, they're missing, we know, from the newspaper reports and from sad stories from friends and family, they're missing plenty of it. So what impact this has had? Who made that call to actually stop it? Who were they trying to protect? Who made the call to not investigate further? Who made the call to not release this information to the public? It's an extremely toxic brew that they've uncovered. And actually, I mean, the kind of stuff that can make it an impact, have an impact on an election. Now, I understand that they want to step back and try to just do everything they can to make sure that it's a fair election without giving either Democrats or Republicans any kind of heightened ability to claim that this was false or to drag the Republic through some kind of partisan fight over whether or not an election was rigged. But they didn't actually avoid that. So what they were doing is trying to pull back any kind of evidence regarding this. And it's a shameful chapter in American history.
Well, I have a feeling that we will learn more about this. Our friend Mike Howell, I think, is a busy bee today when it comes to this story, and it's not going away anytime soon. It's certainly interesting that Kash Patel himself retweeted this out. Just the News broke it and retweeted it out personally. So a lot more to say, but we have a lot more to cover. So let's go to the big, beautiful bill. We got to get back to it. Rebecca Zelko wrote about this. The headline reads, Republican support wanes as Senate overhauls key provisions. Give us a status update, Chris.
Oh, my gosh. So the Senate came out, the Senate Finance Committee, which was the last committee to do its work, that had worked closely with the House committee on this. And they made a couple big changes. And these were changes that were important for gaining both liberal Republican votes from blue states and also gaining conservative votes. They changed, for example, the sunset clauses and how quickly how quickly Joe Biden's green energy mandates were able to wind down. That was important for saving federal money, and it was important for bringing conservatives to the table. They also took the $40,000 SALT cap, which is what the House of Representatives had begrudgingly come to under threat from Republican House members who represent blue states in California, New Jersey, and New York. They said, we're actually going to do $10,000, which they claim is just a placeholder for negotiations. But we also know that they don't want actual formal negotiations and that no senator actually wants SALT caps. So I'm not sure who they're negotiating with, what that placeholder is exactly for. They also did harsher cuts to, well, not cuts, but restrictions on Medicaid. They're cracking down more than the House of Representatives bill did. For example, on the rural states' practice of taxing their Medicaid expenses the hospitals have in order to increase the number that they're actually spending in order to increase their reimbursement. Now, that is a suspicious money laundering scheme performed by the states. The problem for Republicans is a lot of those states are red, whether they're West Virginia or Missouri or other places that really rely on those rural that money to help prop up some of their rural hospitals. And you have to actually have a little sympathy for people like Senator Josh Hawley when he says, hold on a second, we're going to go after the residents of my state in a place where the modern Obamacare system and the modern federal entangled healthcare system makes it extremely difficult for rural hospitals to exist and actually be able to be profitable in any kind of way. We're going to go after them, but we're going to protect companies' green energy mandates and other subsidies that have been put out there. That seems difficult. So there's still a lot of work. And the big problem that the Senate faces is the person who has closed so many of these deals is President Donald Trump, who, as anyone who's catching up in the news right now, watching Blaze News tonight, checking out the last segment, recognizes, hey, this is someone who was actively engaged in a massive foreign policy brouhaha. Whether or not the United States will be joining more actively the offensive aspects of the war against Iran that Israel's engaged in. This president's busy, so he's not going to be able to spend the time that he spent on weeks past, either at the G7 summit or, as in weeks past, talking to senators, talking to congressmen, making phone calls, sealing deals that neither Thune nor Johnson were actually able to seal on their own. So that means they're going to have to go to work each day without daddy there to save them. And that does not bode well for a July 4th signing of this bill.
All right, you took us to the Middle East, so let's stay there because we now know that the Democrats in Congress and apparently Thomas Massie are looking to limit President Trump's authority. So tell us all about this proposed wartime powers resolution, Chris.
You know, wouldn't that be nice to have some limit on the president's authority? I understand that President Trump is much more of a mastermind of foreign policy than Presidents Barack Obama or Joe Biden were. But at the same time, Congress abrogated or gave up its control over the power to declare war literally before our fantastic reporter Rebecca Zelko was born. They gave it up after 9/11, essentially. And under the authorization of military force, it's extended not just to Afghanistan and not simply to Iraq, but to places as far abroad as Georgia, as places in Africa. The president has traditionally a right to be able to quickly defend or engage in conflicts that threaten the United States and has to do so regardless of legislative power, but then has to go back to the Congress if these actions want to continue. As far as I can tell, while there certainly are scenarios that have been outlined as recently as today by the Prime Minister of Israel, where Iran having a bomb is a direct threat to the United States, there is no actual imminent threat from this war. So the president would be engaging in war abroad with a country on the other side of the planet to assist an ally who is actually and actively threatened and under attack from Iran based on what exactly? Certainly not something that was imagined by the framers. Now, I hate to side with Thomas Massie and a bunch of Democrats, but they've got a point here. In Congress, as much as they're willing to flip out and defend the powers, the money that they've sent out, even when it's not even being spent, to all the broad swaths and the corruption and the mismanagement of the federal government, you'd kind of wish that they would also defend their ability to declare war a little more seriously, a little more warlike, maybe. And so far they haven't. And I don't know if that appetite has changed whatsoever.
Well, you know, I'd love to nerd out about the War Powers Act and more today.
I know.
But there's so much more to say, but I won't because we would be remiss if we didn't mention that today is a day to celebrate one man in a world of news. Someone who I am very grateful came to work with us at Blaze, and there's just not a lot of people like him, and that is Chris Bedford and his birthday today.
Thank
Happy
you, Mr.
birthday.
Peterson. You're a fantastic man to work with. And Miss Savage, you are the greatest host I've ever had a privilege of joining, whose program I've had a privilege of joining. It's been a pleasure to work with both of you and to hang out with our fantastic and super engaged audience.
Yes, I feel like you were like forced to say that. I feel like that's how it came across. Is like, I am reading this. I must say, I like working with you, but I really do like working with you.
I am being treated well.
You are. We are trying to do our
I
best.
have converted to Islam.
Oh, so I am going to raise an ice cold martini in your honor after the show tonight. I don't know if it should be shaken or stirred.
You know, some of the nerds say you should never shake it. I say nuts to them. The best martini, I put my glasses in the freezer this morning in preparation for this momentous occasion, which is actually all the work done by my mother. I sent her flowers as well. I put those in there, and I like to shake them because I like that little level of glassy ice on top. It's just perfect on that first sip.
I knew it. Well, happy birthday, Bedford. We are happy that you made some time on your big day to be here with us.
Of course, and I can't wait to join you in Texas soon.
All right, we'll see you then. Don't worry, it's a lot hotter here. Keeping that ice cold martini will take a lot more work here when you're in Texas. People are panicking, though. People are panicking all over. Logan Hall, our digital strategist, will tell you, don't worry, everything will be okay right after this. Unfortunately, the Panikins are back. Blaze Media's digital strategist Logan Hall didn't hold back on X with his post, calling out the Panikins, freaking out after every twist and turn regarding Israel, Iran. You can throw immigration in there as well. You'll remember that Trump himself coined that phrase Panikin back in April because everybody was worried about the tariffs. It turned out to be okay. Logan is actually here with more right now. So you told everybody online to get a grip. And I think that might be the best advice of anyone, of anything, because it's so simple. It's straight to the heart of the matter. Just get a grip, people. It's going to be okay.
Yes. Calm down. As Trump famously said, a Panikin is a new political party based on stupid and weak people. I just want to tell everyone that things will be all right, okay? This wouldn't be such a problem if it didn't happen so often, but it seems like with every issue, with every new news cycle, there are people that are constantly freaking out and freaking out on Trump or freaking out just having mental breakdowns online. So this happened like with Gaza. There were people that were losing their minds over that. They eventually moved on to tariffs, and now they've moved on to immigration this week with the news of the pauses and then the stopping of the pauses on the raids on farms and hotels, and then additionally with the Israel-Iran conflict. So people just need to chill out, take a breath, and it's important to understand the tactics here. So it's okay to voice your opinion and say, I disagree with this, and calmly state that. But if you are every other week saying, Trump is destroying, everyone's going to die, Trump's destroyed his base, he's destroying the country, you just are not fit to participate in politics, and you need to take a step back and calm down and relax.
So I understand that people are, it's a new coalition, right? Yes. So I understand that people are nervous about losing that coalition or losing the heart of it. There's a lot of different people and factions and tensions within it. But it is bizarre to me that there's a certain element of, particularly at least from what I see, right, our friends online who freak out every week that, it's over, MAGA's over. And so what's your working theory as to why you think this is?
I don't know. I think part of it is the nature of social media and in some sense, right-wing politics. I know Mystery Grove, our friend, he's at Conundrum Cluster on Substack. I would highly recommend everyone go subscribe there. But one of his posts about this phenomenon was that we need a new political party based on emotionally unstable people who are addicted to social media and who just want to let liberals win whenever setbacks are encountered, real or imaginary. Okay? These people I think the right is so used to not winning that now that things are trending in our direction, and that we have the moment and the mandate, obviously, famously, that some people just don't know how to keep it cool, and they are in this moment now where we have the energy and we have the momentum, and they don't want to lose it, justifiably, rightfully so, but they are just lashing out and freaking out all the time, and it just does nothing to help the cause.
Truer words have never been spoken, right? Republicans, this is what they know how to do. Oh, we're about to win? Oh, let's screw everything up at this moment in time. I kind of look at this and say, okay, so the leftists, they have their Trump derangement syndrome, right? Yeah. But Trump is even kind of doing this to people on the right now. Like, they just don't know what to do and how to deal with this. It's not Trump derangement syndrome. Is this the definition of the panicans? Are the right Trump derangement syndrome people?
It's kind of like what Trump famously said, where he said, disloyal R's are far more difficult than crooked Hillary. I will teach them how to win. This is the problem. They're just not used to winning and don't understand what political coalition building and winning takes years and years and years and decades. And another part of this, too, is that there was a great graph that came out recently that there's actually a lot more diversity of thought on the right side of the spectrum than the left. The left is very disciplined in their strategy and their messaging. They have this very confined worldview and ideology. And so the right is pretty much anything that is not the left. And so when you have this phenomenon, because the Republicans and the right are the outer party, you have all these different factional groups that you have to manage and organize, which Trump has done a pretty phenomenal job. You know, even right now with what's going on with Israel and Iran, you have these two, you have kind of the old Republican base where it's like the hawks and the neocons and people who are very war hungry. And then you have like the isolationist wing, which kind of is very famous. Trump was very famously opposed to all those endless foreign wars. So he's trying to manage all these people. You have both sides that are saying Trump is doing a great job. We love Trump. But he has to manage these people, and they're very, very opposite polar wings of the party. So a lot of it just comes back to that we're newly in this moment where we are winning, but some people just cannot handle that, and they want to go back. It's much easier to lose and say we have to let liberals win than it is to win yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I'd like to find something else to say, but I agree with what both of you are saying. I think it is very much tied to a losing mentality, which is pathetic. But as Trump said, I will teach you how to win. Let me teach you how to win. So as you said, we were talking before you came on air, the left doesn't do this. I mean, they're not sitting around panicking all the time in the same way. And that's instructive. On the other hand, I like having a party where we can call things out and disagree. So, of course, it's important to stay vigilant on these things, right? I think you were saying. So, how do you walk that line, right? Because on the one hand, people should, in fact, put pressure on the administration and say, hey, this isn't what we voted for. This isn't what, the President Trump's agenda is. And why is this person going off the rails? Those are very important debates. So how do you kind of strike a balance between that and then the panicking?
Yeah. Well, the first, I would say, that when the news came out that DHS was potentially pausing these raids on hotels and farms, and there was a lot of rightful pushback amongst Republicans saying, no, we want mass deportations mean they all have to go back, right? But that is much, much different than blackpilling and calling people basically crying, sounding like hysterical women, and saying, "Oh, it's over. It's completely over. The Trump moment is done. Trump has destroyed his base. Trump has betrayed." No, politics is a very complicated thing, and there are a lot of moving parts here. And you're right. It is. You have to find like the middle ground. But I would just say, if you're ever tempted to start freaking out, just take a step back, okay? It's, the touch grass thing is kind of lame, but just get off your phone for a little bit. Understand that, it will be okay. Tomorrow is a new day. You can work things out. And Trump is actually probably, this is probably one of the most receptive administrations, political people. They are very online. They understand when they have maybe made a misstep, and they hear you, and they usually tend to correct it pretty publicly. So I would just say, hey, the MAGA moment has to happen. We have to take our country back. But you don't sit there and immediately just say, okay, it's time to backstab Trump now. It's time to doubt Trump. Like, after all we've been through these past 10 years, to act like none of it's happened, or you're just going to turn on the flip of some stupid news story, is crazy to me.
They tried to kill the man less than a year ago. We're almost coming up to the 1-year anniversary for this. Now, when I say that nobody loves Donald Trump more than Logan Hall, we've said that before on the show. That is absolutely still true. I will also add this to it. No one wants to deport them all more than Logan Hall as well. So on your X account, Logan Clark Hall, the most famous meme that you use all the time is John Hamm standing in front of the blank whiteboard. And you put out today that we deport 100 million people while everyone is distracted. Now's a great time.
Yes, it is.
We are all looking at Israel. We are all looking at Iran. We're saying, what's going on over there? Yeah. We have an opening.
Yeah, I'm very big on the immigration thing. I think it's the number one problem we face, and this is also what I would probably argue is Trump's number one issue, is people are tired of the mass immigration and all these illegals coming in here. So yeah, I think that's sort of I took a page out of the Stephen Miller playbook there, because no matter what's going on in the world, he is always just posting about how terrible illegal immigration is.
The fact that you rival Stephen Miller in, like, I want to deport them all more than you want to deport them all is, I think, a very good compliment.
That's true. I mean, and it's also, we should point out, Stephen Miller he's not a panicking.
Oh, no.
He doesn't blackpill.
No.
He just stays focused on the goal.
Yep.
And it has its effect. And that was something that you were also, you are a living embodiment of that during the last few years, even in the darkest times, of just continuing to post no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's good to post, but just never lose your cool. That's my main message to people.
You know, you can't be blackpilling. I saw a man when we were at the Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., and he was wearing one of our Gulf of America shirts. So the fact that that is happening in Washington, D.C., you can't be blackpilling now.
No, with all the stuff that's going on, there are incredible things that are happening every day. I truly think that we have a generational opportunity to fix this country. We just need to get some people in line and say, hey, take a step back, calm down. We're still going to win. It's okay.
Get the deep state out of it. No panikins. We will move on and retake this country and build it back better than ever. Logan Hall, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
When we come back, we'll get your take on the Israel and Iran situation and say, do you want the U.S. involvement or not? Right after this. It's the art of the deal. Donald Trump plays to win. Here's what he says, that he wants to see the end goal for the conflict between Israel and Iran.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you close there? Is that possible in the next 24
Why not?
hours?
Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible, yeah.
That's possible. Everything's possible there with Donald Trump when he's the one calling the shots, as we have seen for so long. I just want to get your take on just where we are right now in this conflict, right? So many moving parts that we see in the administration, right? We were talking about that earlier on the show. Where do you see things right now?
In terms of Iran, yeah. So what's going on right now is very interesting, but it looks like there's a decision to be made. It's already been made, most likely, and it's a very interesting situation because this is the administration coming together and sort of breaking every side's narrative. I mean, I think what we're going to see happen is the Trump administration will steer a course that, and on the one hand, is not just restraining, as the restrainers want, right? There is some intervention, but on the other hand, is not going to get us embroiled in World War III or a war that lasts a long time or any sort of boots on the ground or anything like that.
So with that in mind, that was the question that I asked you on X today is, do you want to see U.S. military involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict? Why or why not? Let's go ahead and start it out with Kyle. He replies that I'd rather not, but if they block the Strait of Hormuz, then we need to respond. Otherwise, I'm happy with the U.S. perfecting missile interception in a capability protecting for the Israeli citizens. So I think that's a good point that he is making there. If you block the Strait of Hormuz, all bets are off at that point in time. Things will escalate at that point because we just know this. But if not, then go through and let the Israeli people do what they need to do themselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, they always threaten. They threaten to do things that will hurt us. They threaten to attack us. They're big talkers, like it happens in a lot of the Arab world in these conflicts. But their actions often don't match where their mouth is. So we'll see. Of course, I think none of us would like to see them do something foolish and really come after us, which is just going to necessitate a response that's going to be, awful for their country.
Let's get to Dee's response. It says, I'm good with using whatever air assets we have to rid the world of Iran's nuclear capabilities, but no boots on the ground. This was a very popular one there online with all of the replies today.
So I really think like that is going to the heart of the matter. I would strongly suspect that this is the kind of thing we see happen where no one wants boots on the ground, that's not going to happen. Trump doesn't want boots on the ground. But as Michael Duran said at the beginning of the show, there's a way to do this without any boots on the ground and maybe just, one big, beautiful bomb.
Johnny Z rounds out the replies and he says, only, and I emphatically stress only, if there is a clear and present threat. And the administration should make it abundantly clear what that threat is. It's almost like we lived through the early 2000s all together, and we have heard, there are these very capable threats in Iraq, and there are weapons of mass destruction, and we're still looking, MP.
Yeah. So here's the problem, right? We were all sick of that. We all know that the administrations can lie, government can lie, and on the one hand, we've heard that Iran has nuclear weapons for 2 weeks away for a long, long time, and I get that frustration. I get the fact that people are tired about it. But I do think that what's different here is everyone does need to calm down, right? No panicins, as we said. What's different here is that you truly have a terrible regime that has come after us in many ways for decades. Now, that doesn't mean we go out looking for terrible regimes to help destroy. But I think what a lot of my friends, and I come from the non-intervention camp. I come from the, George Washington farewell address, don't get entangled in foreign conflicts camp. I think what people need to remember is these are nice people, right? These are lunatic, Islamic radicals who have controlled this country for a long time. And, right now, Israel is doing its thing against them, which is not really that surprising. I mean, right? People know that there is a antagonism here. And frankly, there's a lot of people quietly in the rest of the region who, have a problem with Iran developing nuclear capabilities or even just being the big bullies that they are. These people who have funded, terrorism against America in many ways for a long time. So I can see also the worry about, well, if we start to go after them, that could create a larger conflict. I mean, Tucker Carlson seems to be worried about this. I don't discount his worry for a microsecond. I think what he argues is I don't regard him as someone who's outside the pale. I think what he says is these are legitimate thoughts that need to be dealt with. But my own view on this is that anyone going in and touching Iran at all is not going to cause World War III. In this situation, it does not appear to me that we're anywhere close to World War III, arising somehow because of this conflict. And, for all my non-interventionist friends, I would say, if we used a bunker buster bomb, why is that the end of the world? As so long as we don't do anything else, right? And I can see that being the compromise measure that makes no one happy on either side, but helps forge a new American foreign policy. And I want to go back a minute, to Iraq and Afghanistan. There was a serious argument at that time, especially in Afghanistan, right, where there were actual terrorists who conducted, terrorism in the United States and changed the world forever. And Angela Codevilla used to argue what should have happened, there should have never have been boots on the ground, or at least not boots on the ground for long. You go in, you destroy the bad guy, and then you leave. And you say, we had to do this because you did X to us, and you guys are going to have to figure the rest of this out. And I could see something like this in Iran, after Israel is done saying, withdraw, you guys figure it out as a people, but we're not going to get involved. Now, having said all that, I will say, of course, that the administration should be seeking to not escalate anything, right? And to not get us entangled in anything. But I just don't think this is as simplistic as saying, even if we helped out Israel a little bit, like getting rid of the nukes, that would somehow be the end of Trump's foreign policy, or, be the same thing as being a neocon. I just don't buy it, So here's the thing about foreign conflicts. This is the most important thing I'll say, because what does it matter, what I think about this or what one person thinks about this? These are always complicated, and if you have a simple ruler by which you judge what should happen in every one of these situations according to your particular ideology, you're just not going to make it, right? That's not how you make these decisions. Every decision you have to make when you're president is in real time and fluid situations, and you can't just apply some easy marker for what should or shouldn't be done. So you got to use prudence. That's different in each situation, and pontificating about it online probably isn't going to help.
We know the American people are done with forever wars. We don't want to see that ever again. But when we look at the Trump administration, even in the first Trump administration, with all of the turmoil behind the scenes, Donald Trump is still praised because he didn't get us into any new foreign wars.
Yes.
And you look at this now and he says, okay, well, with everything that has been laid out on the table in front of him right now, Steve Deace, other friends of ours have been posting on X, like, this is statesmanship. This is what it actually looks like. And he should be applauded, not only just because this is the mandate, but like, this is what it should look like going into foreign conflict.
Yes. So far, to me, this looks like statesmanship, absolutely, because what Trump is doing is walking the line in between things. And look, Israel is the one who's going out and fighting. He's telling the Iranians, like, you got to stop this. And even if we did go in and drop some bombs on the bunker, right? I don't live my life by whether or not Lindsey Graham has a wargasm over it, or whether it pleases a few boomer cons. Like, okay, great. I don't care if it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. If it makes sense in the situation, it makes sense in the situation. I'm not worried about Trump becoming some kind of neocon. And so I think everyone exactly needs to calm down. And so far, you can see him navigating. He's navigating. I feel very confident in President Trump and what he's going to decide to do and how he navigates, just because of what I've seen thus far of this presidency.
I think that what Logan Hall said is actually one of the more important things on this whole show of Republicans. We're winning. We've won. Just to enjoy this and make sure that you don't go through and have our own battles internally, because Chris Bedford comes on the show all the time and tells us how terrible things are for the Democrats right now. Let's make sure that the Republican coalition can stay together, because this is only the beginning, people.
Oh, yeah. Look, it's good that they have disputes, right? We have disputes about foreign policy within the party, within the administration. It's good there's disputes about immigration, right? We'll hold each other accountable.
We will. But you know what? We can all come together. We can all get along. It'll be okay. Happy birthday, Chris Bedford. We'll see everybody back here again tomorrow. Thanks for watching.